Jake, you play Southpaw. What was it about that character, or maybe even the script, that made you want to sign on to the project?
Well, first of all, because it was a Western and I've always wanted to do a Western and um having Mario at the helm was definitely a big part of that. And Southpaw was just such a fun character. It was a departure for me to do something with kind of this accent and this kind of like rough and tumble gunslinger. So it had a lot of things that appealed to me. So I was happy to jump on board.
Did you have to get a dialect coach for that accent?
I did, yeah. I used this guy Tim Monick who is just he's the best. Like he's done so many amazing transformations for actors. So that was a fun process too. It was challenging, but really fun to do.
That's so cool. Amber, how was the role of Queenie described to you? Because she starts off one way, and that character kind of grows into something else as this film goes on. So, how was she described to you when you first signed on to it?
So Mario described Queenie as a wild one. He said that she's fun. She wants to be one of the guys. So that's the description that I got. Of course, after reading more, I fell in love with Queenie. She's so much fun, and she's a lot like myself as far as her being so intuitive and really no nonsense. So.
I did like her. She was one of the guys. She really could hang and roll with the punches with the rest of them. She was great. This is a question, I guess, for both of you. Let's talk about the costumes. I feel like costumes make the character, and they really had to nail that 1900s Western Montana look. Did those clothes for you when you stepped into them? Did you feel immediately in character?
Absolutely. For me, just because it's a whole different process than how we get dressed today. There are many layers. So I definitely appreciate, the way that women dress then. But I also love that it's more simple these days. So yes, the wardrobe, which was amazing, all hands on, was fabulous. And it definitely made me feel like Queenie.
Jake?
Yeah, the costumes were fantastic. We were very fortunate to have such a great costume team and department. And I think being out in Montana, this wasn't their first rodeo, as you say. So they had a good idea of what they were doing. They were very specific with Mario. Mario knew what he wanted and was really detailed about the costumes. But yeah, it was just so valuable to kind of get us into character and get us into that world. And but it was a process. It was a process every day trying to lace up these chaps and all the layers. And it was interesting. And I was saying I'm not, yeah, I don't miss it as much.
Well, it was a really kind of physical film. I mean, there was a lot of action, a lot of moving, horseback riding, gunshots, shootouts. I'm assuming some lacing into all of that could be a little restrictive and something you'd have to get used to outdoors in the heat, running around filming. I imagine it. Maybe even the restriction might even help you get into character.
For
Yes,
sure.
there's certainly authentic to that time period and to what these characters would be dealing with. So I know I ran into trouble because I was learning to spin the gun and then my character had gloves and they're like, of course you would have gloves. Like you don't realize that these weapons are so heavy and they're gonna cut up your hand just from handling them. But then I had these gloves on and I was like, how do you spin this gun? It was just more clunky, but I like that it was just true to what would be happening in this time period for these characters.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I think maybe people don't realize that you you kind of prepare in one way and you're like, oh wait, now I have to prepare in
Yeah.
costume. That's not something I really thought about. It's an interesting take on that. Amber, we mentioned that Queenie is a spitfire of a woman who happens to jump back in a relationship with Chief, who's played by Mario Van Peebles, writer, director, and producer. And later she joins the posse and goes from like bar entertainer to girlfriend to kind of posse shootout, badass. And she's delivering justice across an unsettled land. You worked mostly with veteran actor Mario Van Peebles. Did he offer any advice that helped you craft your character or inspired the artist in you? Because he's really a legend. He comes from a family of legends, of actors and directors. And so I'm assuming like the advice or even just the direction uh, imparted some wisdom on you about, your career, your craft, and your artistry. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Working with Mario was a dream come true. Like you said, he is a legend. So I was fortunate to get a little time with him before we even started filming. We would do Zoom calls or FaceTime calls, and he would really, talk to me more about the character and what he needed to see from me as far as becoming Queenie. And I think the biggest takeaway for me was to let myself be wild and free and not be so reserved because as Amber, I'm more reserved, but Queenie is a wild one and she doesn't care. So that was fun and it was freeing and liberating.
Well, I think the fans are going to love this movie. There's some fantastic cameos, we'll say, Oscar winners and entertainers, comedians. Whoopi Goldberg, I don't want to spoil, but Whoopi Goldberg, Cedric Entertainer, Edward James Olmos. It's really a cast of amazing characters, amazing actors, and a really fun story that I think we're not used to seeing on the landscape of film and Western. So I really enjoyed it, and I think the fans will too.